Hey, Jeremy Callahan, and welcome to the show this week. And we got a good topic this week. It is called Going Mobile, how to expand your existing skills to adapt to a mobile world. So this is not just for developers. This is for developers, it is for QA professionals, it's for project managers, it's for business owners. It's really for anybody that's looking to advance their mobile skills and why you should be doing it. So here's what I'm going to teach you today, and it's a little bit different format, so I'm just going to go through and teach you some stuff today, actually. So one, why you should learn mobile development. Two, the development considerations. The third thing I'm going to talk about is a hybrid versus a native mobile app and what the difference is and why you need to know that. Then I'm going to talk about low coding and citizen developers, some new buzzwords. And then, of course, resources you can actually use to learn mobile programming. Okay, not only just learn mobile programming, but also learn some alternatives if you're not a programmer, some drag and drop utilities that you can use for your team. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Jeremy Callahan. I am a mobile architect. Before that, I was a developer, and I develop Android, hybrid apps, iOS apps. I've worked from small businesses, and now some of the bigger projects I've worked on are Safeway, Universal Orlando, and American Express. I've led the mobile teams there as well. I'm full stack engineer. I basically have done everything since 1998. I've been a developer, and in 2011, I became a mobile developer, and so I've been programming mobile apps ever since then. And of course, I host my podcast, To App or Not to App. I have a show on the Woodage Network and a YouTube channel, so look me up on YouTube, Jeremy Callahan, subscribe. If you're just listening to this today, I encourage you to go to my YouTube channel and subscribe because I'm going to be sharing a slide presentation that goes along with this as well. So the main question, why should I learn mobile? And it's really simple, okay? I'm gonna give you some stats here, and these are really important stats. So 67% of all organizations have at least 10 apps project planned this year. 67% of the organizations have 10 apps that they want to build this year. That's a lot of apps. That's a lot of everyone needs an app at this point in time. 88% of all companies prioritize mobile functionality. So all of these companies out there right now, 88% of the companies out there are prioritizing mobile. And just so you know, if you're looking at the screen right now, this report is from the State of Application Development 2017 by OutSystems, and this was published in November of 2017, so it's only a few months old. 62% of companies have a mobile project backlog. So if you're a developer of any sort right now, or a project manager and you don't have mobile skills, I mean, look where the industry is going. 62% of the companies have a backlog of mobile projects. And then this is the big one that everybody needs to really focus on, and it's 44% of companies cite a skills gap, and 37% cite not enough developers. So if you look at this chart right now, the purple line, 44%, knowledge gap. And then the blue line is not enough mobile developers. It's an industry-wide problem, right? So now that we know why we got to go mobile and why we need to be involved in mobile, let's talk about development considerations. And really, you know, a skilled mobile developer, I say, right? Like if you're a developer, you know if, else, you know how to go out and get data and display data, create registration forms, logins, data services, database programming, all of those things. All of those same concepts apply, but when we talk about mobile development, there's specific development considerations that you need to know about. And really, it's kind of like the whole process of how to get your code onto someone's phone. So here are some of them, and we'll just go through them real quick. The first one is the app approval consideration. So when you submit an app to Google or Google Play or iTunes, you submit them, and then in iTunes they actually review them. So if you don't have a good example, let's say you're asking for geolocation. You're asking for my location when I use your app. If you don't ask that at the beginning, when I first come in, say, hey, this app would like permission. If you don't ask that, Apple will reject your app. So with Apple, the approval process takes 2 to 7 days. And then with Android, it's much faster, it's 2 hours. So the thing is if you want to launch, let's say you want to launch on May 1st, that means a week before May 1st, you actually have to submit your app. And if it gets rejected, that's going to push your timeline out. So the app approval consideration is something that you really want to be aware of. And then the second thing about that is you want to make sure that there's certain features within your app that you can turn on and off remotely. So from like the back end. So I'll give you an example. When I was at Safeway on the project, we did a gas rewards. They have a gas rewards page. Well, not everybody has a car. So they wanted to add grocery rewards where you would get like $1 off for every $100 you spent. So we developed it and we programmed it, but we only wanted to roll it out. We wanted to roll it out in a slow process in case something went wrong. So we only rolled it out to four stores. And what ended up happening was all we had to do to turn on 100 stores was go to the database and hit a record, and then those stores would be active, and 1,000 stores. So we are actually able to turn on and off features from the back end. And that's something that when you're doing a mobile project, it doesn't matter if you're a developer, if you're a QA, if you're a project manager, if you're a business owner, you have to be able to remotely turn functions on and off so that you can avoid that app approval process. So if you roll out a new feature, you don't have to go through the App Store again. The next thing we want to talk about is native features. So this is one of the other differences in developing mobile, and this is native features. And when we talk about native features, we're talking about the camera, geolocation, voice control, biometrics like your face, how the iPhone 10 recognizes your face. So again, you have to ask the user for permission. If you don't ask for permission, you'll get rejected in the App Store and your project timeline will be pushed out. So that's a consideration. Next is push notification and in-app messaging. So this is one of the most powerful things you can do with a mobile app, because a website, you can send an email and you can send traffic to a website, but with a mobile app, it's actually in my hand. I can give you a message and it's very likely or more likely that you'll click on that at that time. So push notification, some of the things that you got to consider is it requires a back-end setup as well, okay? And so what we mean by that is like there's services like Salesforce has one. What was the other one we used? Localization was one that we used, so that somebody sitting at their desk on their computer can actually type like, hey, I want to send a specific message that we're having a 10% off sale to these 1,000 customers, right? And then that push notification. So that service, to set that up, the back end, one, you got to choose what the back end is going to be, and then secondly, you've got to actually set it up. So, and then here's the thing I would really, as a skilled developer, you should know is how you're actually going to be able to test that. Because you have to, the only way you can test it is that it's actually on someone's phone. So you can't test a push notification in a simulator. You actually have to build a file, get it on a test flight. Test flight is, so I'm talking about Apple here. Test flight is a service where we can put a test app up there and invite you in so that you can actually test something. So that's really the only way to test a push notification is on an actual device. So on this next slide, I want to talk to you about the difference between push notifications, pop-up modals, and then message centers. And so this is a best practice that you should know about. Okay, so in-app messages is obviously here on the left if you're looking at the screen. And we have to give the users permission to do that. So a lot of times, or a lot of users, I would say, don't approve that process. So how do we deal with them? Well, what we can do is on the far right where you see Message Center. So if you open up Instagram, let's say Instagram's a great example. I don't have push notifications on Instagram personally. I don't have them active. So I never see the little icon with the one next to it that I have a message. And I never see something like this on the left where I get an in-app message. Hey, Pam replied to your picture. I don't see that. So, but when I open up Instagram, I see the message center. And the message center is over here on the right. You just see it. It's just a little one that indicates I have a message in the header of my app. And so that way, that's a good practice for planning and development of a messaging service. You have in-app messages for the people who've accepted them, and then the people who haven't, when they open the app, their eye is drawn to that thing, and they're likely to see your message. So that's the best practice there. And then the final piece is the one in the middle, which is an in-app modal. So this is something you can control from the back end. So let's say this one is for Waze. What is it? Sync your calendar. They're asking you to sync. They added a new feature to sync your calendar. So when you open this app the first time, or maybe the second time, you actually see this message pop up. And you might only see it one time. So that's special offers. So push notifications, in-app modals, and message centers are very important to know in the development consideration. The next is deep linking. So I'll explain what a deep link is. A deep link is essentially a smart link. So what it is if, let's just say I send you an email, and in that I want you to come into my app and take some sort of action. So what a deep link does is the first thing it does is when somebody clicks on that link, it determines, is this user Android, iOS, or are they a web user? That's the first thing it does. If they're a mobile user, the next thing it does is it says, does this user have the app installed? If you have the app installed, it links you in to the specific page, right? So if I send you a product for a shoe, and then you click on it and it just takes you to like the home page of my app, that's a horrible user experience. So what we want to do is take them, if I show you a picture of a shoe and you click on it, into the app, into the actual shoe that I sent you. And so that's what deep linking does. It determines if you have a phone, it determines if you have an app, and then if you don't have the app, or you're on the web, it just takes you to a web page with that specific product. So that's what deep linking is, and you have to have deep linking. There's third parties that you can integrate with. The most effective one out there, the leader in the industry, is a company called Branch, and it's branch.io is where they're at. They have a software development kit for iOS, for Android, for web. They have one for hybrid. They really cover everything. And here on the screen, you can just see an example of a deep link. So here it is. I send a message. We send a push notification message or a text to someone. And then if they click it, they're actually taken to the exact recipe that you see on the screen here. If they don't have the app, I guess they could be taken to the listing in iTunes and ask them to install the app. Localization. So localization is having your app available in multiple languages. So this is something you want to think about in every app project. Is this just an English, United States only product, or are we going to roll it out in Spanish and different languages? And so when you develop this, when you plan and develop this, you want to make sure that all of the text fields, like, I don't know, the name of the page, right? The heading of the page, that they're all dynamically programmed. So later on, even if you're only doing it in English the first time, you may want to do this because a year later you might come back and go, wow, we could double our market if we went into Mexico. Then all we need is a Spanish. So what you basically have is a text file, and it has all the English, and then you have a text file that has all the Spanish. And when the app loads, it goes and it fetches that file, the text file. So the same code is pulling two different languages, and that's what localization is. Okay, so third-party APIs, this is the final development consideration. And when we talk about a third-party API, this is like a call-out. So the in-app messages, like I talked about, we have to use a service like Localization. For deep linking, we use something like Branch. So this is a third-party API that we actually have to tie into. And coming back to the report again, by OutSystems, and the average app has probably about 6 API calls. So that could be to branch, to your in-app messages. That could also be to your local services as well. Maybe your login and password service. So API services are something that every developer should know about when they get into programming mobile apps. Okay, next section, native versus a hybrid architecture, okay? So let me just explain kind of what the difference is. A native is actually iOS or Android specific, okay? And what that means is that if you program for an iPhone, you program in Swift, which is a programming language, and if you program in Android, you program in Java. So let's say I want to make an app for a workout app, and I want to do it native. That means I have to program it twice. I have to program it once in Android and once in iOS. Now, you do get better performance. So if you're doing something like a game or something where performance is very important, then you definitely want to choose a native. They have rich libraries of like native components, buttons, transitions between pages, all the things you see in a lot of like native iPhone or Android gestures and movements. They have libraries for that. And you don't have third-party dependencies. So you don't have to worry about a third party changing something up. Now, hybrid on the other hand, okay? One code base that can be run on both devices. And basically what you do is you program with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are web technologies. So if you're a front-end web programmer and you're looking to get into mobile, this is the fastest and most effective way. You take the code you have, the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript, you put it into something like PhoneGap, and what PhoneGap does is it spits you out 2 files, one for Android and one for iOS. So from one code base, write it once, run it anywhere. So it's it's more cost effective, it's easier to maintain, and so there's just a lot of upside to it, and we're starting to see a lot of companies go down that route now. Again, the number one way of how to choose, so this is the most important, like how do you choose, right? Well, a lot of times the client already has a system in there in place, which is native, so you just use that. But if you're in a role or a position where you have to choose a native versus a hybrid framework, here's how you do it. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna do is just look at your phone right now and look at all the icons on your phone and make a determination. Is most of the apps on your phone, are they just websites? So if you like, think about Yelp, think about OpenTable, think about Groupon. Look at those sites. Those are just websites. They're really just websites. They're not doing anything special, Yeah, they're using your camera, but they're not really doing anything special. So if a app and the app you want to build or the customer you're building an app for is just a website that has website functionality, then always choose a hybrid framework, always. If you need something like a game, definitely native. If you need something like Snapchat where you're using the camera to do gestures and AR and some other things, definitely native. So here's the chart with the breakdown of the native versus hybrid. And it's kind of interesting, 26%, what is your preferred mobile app development? They've asked companies, what's your preferred, native, hybrid? Hybrid gets 19%, native gets 17%. So hybrid is just a little bit ahead of native, but the big blue one there is varies from case to case. So you could be a company that has a native app, and then you come up with an idea for something, and you realize that it would be more effective to program it in a hybrid framework. So it just varies. Okay, let's talk about low code. What the heck is low code? Well, low code it's kind of a buzzword, and citizen developers is the new one. It allows non-developers to create apps. So these range, some of them you could actually, they're kind of drag and drop utilities. Some you could actually but you could actually launch an app. Most of them, you basically drag and drop and create prototypes of apps. And then with those prototypes, you take them and hand those off to the developers, and then the developers actually do the heavy coding on those. So these have a lot of upside. They speed up development time, first of all, and they speed up the prototyping process tremendously. So it's definitely something you want to do. And again, drag and drop utilities. My personal favorite is Ionic Creator. There's a link in the presentation. All these links are in the back of the presentation, by the way. So Ionic Creator is a great one. It allows you to, here's Ionic Creator right here. It allows you to just basically drag and drop. You can see over on the left-hand side, there's button bars, buttons, there's photos, and you just drag them over, and then kind of on the right, you can change out the text. And the nice thing about Ionic Creator is that you can actually export it onto someone's phone and allow them to test it in a test environment. So how do you learn mobile? How can you, and I think this is for everybody, you know, again, some of you are developers, some of you are business people, some are in QA, some are business owners that are watching this. So just how do you learn mobile? And really, there's some great utilities out there, and I'm going to reference all the IBM utilities because I think they're fantastic. And the first one is Bluemix. You can get an account on Bluemix and get in there. And this is, you know, if you just want to take tutorials and learn things, this is perfect, right? Like if you look, there's all kinds of things you could actually use in the mobile starter kits. There's actually Watson, visual recognition. You could build like a visual recognition face, like a face app using their platform. Ionic over there, top right, that's a hybrid framework if you want to work within that one. There's some solution tutorials. So here are the tutorials. I would recommend that you go to the link below and use the solution tutorials. Here's one for iOS, Android, and hybrid. And these actually set up a in-app notification. So you could actually just go in and program this and learn this really easy. There's also quick start guides. So there's just a bunch of quick start programming things. There's one for Cordova, which is actually PhoneGap. That's a hybrid. There's iOS, there's Android, there's Windows, there's this Xmarian, which is a hybrid framework. And then if you just want to do a website as well, like a responsive web page. Look, quick start guides, you like put them in there, you type in some code, like a few commands, and it installs a folder on your computer that actually has like an app pretty much programmed. Very good. IBM has some great mobile seminars on their YouTube channel. All different kinds of topics covered here. Introduction to App Center, introduction to cloud, secure your mobile service with the back end with your app ID. So all kinds of good stuff here. And then here's the links to the resources. You can get in here and check these links out. And these are available for you to go in and, you know, start tinkering around, start looking and learning a new skill. So that's the end of the presentation today. Again, my name is Jeremy Callahan. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. My website is jeremycallahan.com, and you can find my email there. There's my phone number if you want to call me. If you have questions about apps, app development, where to get started with app development, anything, I would love to help you. I'm available for you, and I appreciate you watching the presentation.